Tuyaba hana con manse kasakabua hamakuiba hakwai vale hana con manse datraha hahomse datraha hahomse hariko mabu atabe hariko mabu hebeyono hariko mabu kamekwana hariko mabu itaikera kuiribano abinaka omadaka abinaka omadaka abinaka omadaka wateke 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 ukaidale usa pia wateke ukaidale usa pia talatao ukaidale usa pia asiharalo ukaidale usa tuyaba hana con wanse kasakabua habakuiba akwai vale hana con wanse datraha hahomse hariko mabu atabe hariko mabu hebeyono hariko mabu kamekwana hariko mabu itakena kuiribalo hariko mabu atabe hariko mabu hebeyono hariko mabu kamekwana hariko mabu itakena kuiribalo abinaka omadaka abinaka omadaka abinaka omadaka wateke 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 ukaidale usa dia wateke ukaidale usa dia talatao ukaidale usa dia asiharalo ukaidale usa
Guayaba bijaka imoni, seba kaoba tope, maruko y cuesta mana, yucayo tía mapuey. Guayaba bijaka imoni, seba kaoba tope, maruko y cuesta mana, yucayo tía mapuey. Escucho la cigua cantar, debajo el aguacara voy, moví de bejuco me dan, quisqueya taina guayao, arepe maíz el cacheo, casabe del fino japao, los indios quiqueya saben, casabe se quemen buren, remando cayuco yo voy, le tiro la lanza al jurel, debajo del agua yo tan, oigo toca el mayo huacán, guayaba bijaka y mori, se va caoba tope, baruco y cuesta mana, yucayo tía mapuey, guayaba bijaka y mori, se va caoba tope, baruco y cuesta mana, yucayo tía mapuey. Mapuey, Guayaba, Bijaca y Moni, Seiba, Caoba, Copey, Baruco y Guesamana, Yucayo, Tía, Mapuey, Guayaba, Bijaca y Moni, Seiba, Caoba, Copey, Baruco y Guesamana, Yucayo, Tía, Mapuey.
Miyari, hola, hello, Manawa, welcome, bienvenidos to Taino Youth and Elders Day by Guru Taino Te Kiro Ugo. Tairile Rahiko Te Niaku'no, ta trahaba Taino Boricua y Kurukuhua Kena Tequina, ta Taino Hebeyono do Waria Boriken Kena Cuba, ta Kibialu Umacao Boriken. So my name is Rahiko Te Niaku'no. I'm a Taino Boricua artist and educator. My Taino ancestors are from the islands of Boriken and Cuba, and I reside in Boriken. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our event, but I first want to let the other folks who will be speaking, our Behike Miguel Sage, as well as the two youth, Taino youth who will be speaking. I'm going to let them introduce themselves first. And then I'll do my little spiel and explain a little bit about what the event is and how it's part of a larger series. So I'm going to pass it to Behike Miguel Sage so he can introduce himself a little bit.
Acá, hermanos, hermanas, Tatiao no, Ditu no. My name is Miguel Sagué, Subauco Coromo. Mi nombre, me llamo Miguel Sagué, Subauco Coromo, costillas negras, black ribs. Veo que hay por lo menos uno o quizás más personas aquí que nada más que hablan español o que hablan más español que inglés. I see that there's at least one, maybe more than one person in this group that speaks either all Spanish or mostly Spanish. So I'm gonna do all my responses are gonna be in both languages. Voy a hablar bilingüe durante. Yo soy el fundador de una entidad llamada el Círculo Espiritual Indígena Caney. I am one of the founders of an entity called the Caney Indigenous Spiritual Circle. Somos una de las primeras organizaciones de la resurgencia taína, fundados en el 1981. We're one of the very first organizations, entities that formed the Taino Resurgence Movement, founded in 1981, and we've been in operation since then to the present day. Y estamos operando desde el 81 hasta el momento. El fin de la organización es de promulgar la espiritualidad taína a todos los que estén interesados, no tienen que ser solamente taínos. We promote Taino spirituality to all who wish to learn about it, not just taínos. Y eso es, yo soy artista, I'm an artist, I paint and I carve wood. Soy artista, yo pinto en óleos y soy escultor en madera. Así que eso es todo. That's all.
Arikomavu, Jajón, gracias, thank you, Vejique Miguel Sage. I will pass it now to Tonakani Joshua to introduce himself.
Miyari, da irile Tonakani Joshua Perez, da Taino Hebeyono do Waria Boriken, da Kevia Alu, Florida Turtle Island. So, hi, it's a pleasure to see you all here. My name is Tonakani Joshua Perez. I'm a grad student in the middle of getting their master's degree, and I'm focusing it on Taino revitalization so I can contribute to the movement.
Arikomabu, Aho, Joshua. And I will now pass it to Luna Katikuya to introduce herself.
Miari da idile luna katikuya. Da taino heveano do waria poriken. Kena da Gabia Alu, Seattle, Washington. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Luna. I am currently a student at Bellevue College and I am an artist and poet as well.
Arikomabu, Aho. Okay. So before we get on with the conversation between our two Taino youth and Behike Miguel Sage, I want to tell you a little bit about Wuru Taino Te Kiro Uo. We are a grassroots initiative that promotes and celebrates Taino language and culture through things like this, presentations like this, through workshops, classes, in-person gatherings and virtual gatherings, and we do a lot of different things. This Taino Youth and Elders Day is actually part of a larger series that we call the Taino Wateke series. And that is 3 days that we set aside in October to celebrate different aspects of our culture, of our community, of our identities. So on the first day, which is October 11th, we celebrate Taino Language Day. And for this year, we did a compilation video of some of our Hiwatahia Taino language students talking about or mentioning one of their favorite words in the language. So that's up on our social media if you want to check it out. We also asked our students to post their Hiwatahia Taino language projects. So that they can share it with the community. So you'll see it on social media. Then on the second day, October 12th, we observed Taino Day of Resistance. That was yesterday. We did a virtual event for that, where we featured Matuno Kukia Behike Diez Jura, Behike Merlin Wakaika Maketaurie, and Behike Stephanie Kalataniki. And for that, that's because we choose that day because October 12, 1492 is the day that Columbus arrived in the Caribbean. And so instead of observing that, we observe our own people and our own resilience and our own beauty. And so this is part of that series, Taino Youth and Elders Day. So today is us ending that series with a conversation between Taino youth and a Taino elder. Last year, we did the same thing, and the elder that we had on our panel was Irka Mateo, Akutu Irka Mateo, who I know many of you know. And this year, we have Behike Miguel Sage, who is like he said, he's a medicine person. I'm sure he's gonna talk a lot about that. He also is a painter, and he also is a singer, makes music. And so I know people were trickling into this event at different times, but the very first song I played was from his album, which you can find on Spotify. Also, because he's a painter, the cover art, which is beautiful on the album, he made himself. So you should go check it out on Spotify. Then the second song I shared was by me. It was called Hahomse. And then the third song I shared was by Irka. So just some Taino artists in case you're really into music and you want to check out Taino music that's on Spotify. As I mentioned, Miguel Sage, Irka Mateo, myself, Rahikotea, and also Poarani. And there are others, but these are just some that I wanted to show you. So this year we've had a bunch of different events, our language classes, the Taino Wateke series, and after this, now in November, we're going to have our Intro to Taino History, Language, and Culture course. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us. Here's our email and our social media handle. And then in December, we're going to have our Anava Taino Creative Writing Circle, which is going to be led by Sophia, who is a member of our community. And that's going to be really cool. And then we're going to resume our language classes. So if you're interested in any of that, please reach out to us. I wanted to quickly mention also, I'm an enrolled tribal member of Higuayagua. And so are many of you who are here, as well as Luna, who's going to be speaking and asking questions to Behike Miguel Sague. And so I am the cacique for the region of Boriquen of Hiwayagua, and my advisors are Matunlo Kukia Diaz Jura, Matunjeri Antonio Shaye, and Matunjero Yaceli Biahani. If you're interested in learning about Hiwayagua, please feel free to reach out to me at this email that you see here on the screen, hiwayagua.boriquen@gmail.com, if you want to learn about the work that we do in the community and different events that we might have going on and things like that. Oh, I wanted to mention that we have a new Wuru Taino calendar. So last year we put out a Wuru Taino calendar in Hiwatahia Taino, our Hiwatahia Taino language. And it was one of those that you have to like flip. It was a wall calendar. And this year we simplified it a little bit. So we have this one sheet. So that's going to be up on my website soon, as well as new dictionaries. Right now, I know people have been checking it out and seeing that it says sold out because we were out of copies, but I will be getting a new box of dictionaries soon. And so if you're interested in buying the dictionary, it's going to be up on my website soon. Okay, I think those are all the updates that I had. So we will get on now with the conversation. And so I'm going to pin. I'm going to ask Tonakani and Katikuya to start prepping their questions. And as you're doing that, I'm going to start pinning those of us that will be speaking. Okay. So, Tonakani, do you want to ask your first question?
All right. First, I want to say it's a pleasure to finally be able to speak with you face to face in some way. So my first question for you is, for those early in their reconnection journey, what advice do you have regarding spiritual or ritual practices?
Ooh, that's a heavy. La pregunta fue para aquellos que se encuentran en estos momentos en los primeros pasos de su jornada, su viaje a la espiritualidad. ¿Qué consejo puedo dar yo? And so my experience was to go to elders, to people that were already on the path, which in the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s, when I was first beginning, they were not easy to find. Not on the islands, not here, because a lot of our culture had been erased. And so it was very difficult to find people that you could identify as maintaining alive the tradition, the ancient tradition. Cuando yo empecé, desafortunadamente, no habían tanta gente. Los ancianos no estaban al tanto y también estaba el problema de que en nuestra cultura la tradición taína se ha mezclado de una manera sincrética con otras tradiciones, lo mismo de Europa que de África y otras tradiciones también, que era difícil averiguar, discernir de esta mezcolanza qué es lo que en realidad era taíno. At the beginning, back in the 60s and 70s, our tradition, our culture was so mixed in a syncretic fashion with the tradition of Europe and the tradition of Africa, that it was difficult for us to try to pick out those elements. And that continues, but it's not as hard as it was back then. So you can find more elders now that are more in tune. So that's the first place to go, is these people that are maintaining. Es el primer lugar. Ya en este momento, esas dificultades han pasado y hay más personas, más ancianos que se dedican específicamente a la tradición taína y no son tan difíciles de encontrar. Así que esa es la primera. La segunda es leer, leer y leer. The second advice is read, read, read. Get as much information as you can from the literature that has been that is out there, because there's a lot of information about spirituality of our ancestors that has been written down and has been put together by not just in books, but also you can look online. There are some places online. I post a lot of blog work, and there are others that are doing the same thing. Hay personas que también, además de los libros que están a la disposición, también hay información en el Internet sobre la tradición espiritual, la cultura de nuestros antepasados y cómo es que eso se está expresando en estos momentos, and how that ancient tradition is expressing itself at this time. You have to understand that what worked in the 1500s does not work now. Lo que era lógico en los 1500 no funciona en este momento. Así que la tradición ha tenido que evolucionar. The tradition has had to evolve to fit the lifestyle of this era. De los libros, there was a question in the if there's any author that I would send you to, the first one that I would go to is Sebastián Robiou Lamarche. Ese es el autor que en realidad yo me he enamorado del trabajo de él. I have fallen in love with his work. Así que si hay un autor que tiene libros de nuestra tradición, Sebastián Robiou Lamarche, dominicano viviendo en Puerto Rico. This is a Dominican living in Puerto Rico. So go there first and then expand from there. Empiecen ahí primero y de ahí para adelante.
I will pass it now to Katikuya for her question.
My first question for you is, do you remember feeling the calling to do the work that you do today? And if so, what did that feel like?
When I first felt it, I didn't know what it was because I was too little. I was a kid. I was a child. My first inclination to the spirit, to the indigenous tradition as a whole, I just was drawn to anything that was native, anything that was indigenous, no matter what tribe. I wasn't, at that time, there was no conceptualization of Taino culture in the minds of the people that were around me. People practiced Taino culture all mixed up, and they just said, well, I'm from Cuba. They just said, that's Cuban culture. So you couldn't, it was all mixed with all these other traditions. So I grabbed at whatever I could. I remember myself as a kid saying, I want to do things like the ancient people did, like the Tainos did, like the Indians did. We just call them Indians, And there's an iconic photograph of me when I was 8 years old on a beach in Cuba with my father and my sisters, and everybody else is enjoying the beach. And I am focused on this stick that I'm holding, the stick, and I'm going like this, making it spin, trying to make fire like the Indians did, And that shows the first inklings of what my inclination was towards this tradition. And it never left, I wanted to be like the ancestors. I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to make fire like they did. Para mí, la pregunta fue, what was exactly the question? Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, of course. Just the calling to do the work that you do today, what was the feeling you had and what did it feel like?
Ella pregunta que el llamado que me ha atraído al trabajo que yo hago en este momento, ¿cómo es que se sintió eso? ¿Qué es lo que fue lo que yo sentí? Y yo le respondí que esto empezó cuando yo era chiquito. Desde el principio, desde que yo era un niño, yo me sentía atraído a esas tradiciones que existían, que parecían indígenas. O sea, si mi primo decía, ay, voy a comprar, me voy a conseguir una escopeta como los vaqueros para tirar una pistola, una escopeta de juguete, claro, o una pistola. Y yo decía, no, yo quiero un arco y flecha. So my cousins would say, I'm going to get a gun for not a real gun, like a toy gun, for with caps, so make that noise. And I said, no, I want a bow and arrow. So I was always, it was from the beginning. I think I was born wanting to get back to that tradition. And ever since then, it's been an obsession for me. So if you feel that obsession, that's it. That's the call.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. My second question for you is more related to your artistry and your music and your paintings. I wanted to ask, when and how did your music and artist journey start, and how has that impacted your life? Because I too am a painter, and I too am very interested in making my own music and singing and instruments and all that. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about your journey and if you have any insights or advice you can give.
Yeah. So I got a formal art education. I went to art school. I got a scholarship to an art school, a good art school in Columbus, Ohio, called Columbus College of Art and Design. And but it was pretty evident that I was going against the grain when I was there. The teachers and the professors and the people that kind of ran things realized that I kept going towards this theme, and they said, well, you can't just keep doing all these, indigenous themes. Every painting you make has an indigenous theme, an indigenous current. Why don't you broaden your horizons and all that stuff? And I think from their point of view as artists, they were trying to help me, so that I could have a wider experience of the art experience in the school. And I was stubborn, and I was inspired forever to make art that had something to do with my Taino ancestry, with my indigenous ancestry. And it wasn't, they couldn't stop me. They couldn't make me stop. And so my opinion is that I'm okay with that. I'm glad that I did not give in to the push to expand or go beyond, and I have a style, I do a realistic. They wanted me to explore more abstract, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with abstract. It's just not my thing, but they wanted me to go into all these. I wanted to do art that would make it easy for people to see what I was seeing, and it's my art is mythological. My art is symbolic, and there's something of the surreal in it, so that essence of the magic that the ancestors believed in, will imbue it with that symbolism, that beckoning the essence of what they used to do, which was also symbolic. There was a lot of symbolism in what they did, and I try to bring that up bring that out. I don't know whether I answered your question, but I hope I did. The same thing with the music. All my music it's kind of like Irka, there's many parallels between me and Irka Mateo. She also has dedicated her whole life to creating music that is indigenous themed. And I didn't translate all that into Spanish. Y le quiero pedir perdón a aquellos que no traducí todo eso al español, pero es mucho.
Before Tonakani asked the following question, because we're already on the topic of music, I wanted to ask how the album that is on Spotify, that I think is called Songs of the Stone Hoop. Am I remembering that correctly? Right?
That's the name.
Yeah.
Songs from the Stone Hoop.
So I wanted to ask you about that album and kind of like the trajectory of how it came to be. For those of us who are in the Taino community and we listen to it, we can hear the inspiration, right? You talk about Atabe, Yokahu, you could talk about the ancestors. But I wanted to hear a little bit more from you about your inspiration and kind of like the trajectory and like how long it took you to complete it. And I know that there are videos on YouTube of you performing some of these songs, not just by yourself, but like with a whole group, with a whole band. So I wanted to see what that journey was like.
Si la pregunta fue, ella quiere saber algo de mi viaje, el proceso a través del cual se produjo la grabación Songs from the Stone Hoop, canciones del aro lítico. It starts in the 1980s, actually in the 1970s. In the 1970s, when we were first trying to think of how we could express our spiritual inclinations, before we actually founded the Kane Circle, I got these inspirations through dreams and visions. So I was having a lot of dreams and visions, and I know that some of you out there are having those kinds of experiences. And some of these dreams and visions brought me the lyrics in the Taino language, and even more importantly, the music, the melody to these songs. In 1980, I began to write down some of these lyrics, record some of the music. Then I did something important in my life. I took a trip, a canoe trip, a 2-week canoe trip down the Allegheny River, which is a river here in Western Pennsylvania, that was very profoundly spiritual for me, because it connected me to all these dreams and visions from my experience as a Taino. And I actually wrote a book about it called Kanoa, Taino Indigenous Dream River Journey. And at that time, we had already founded the Kane Circle, the Kane Indigenous Spiritual Circle. And from that journey, I got a lot of these dreams that gave me some of these songs. So once all of this was put together, we started singing the songs. Here in Western Pennsylvania, there's not a whole lot of Latinos. So we were gathering with Latinos and many non-Latinos, non-people that would not be identified as Hispanic or Latino or Puerto Rican or anything like that. Just, people from all different traditions. But they learned the words in the Taino language, and we all sang together. And so I got used to the idea of getting together with these people in ceremony and singing the songs. Then in 1990, about 10 years later, one of the members of the leadership of our circle here, a woman that is not a Taino, but was very involved in this, she recorded the first record of our songs. She only recorded songs that had to do with women because she was more involved in women's spirituality. So she recorded the songs that had to do with women's spirituality of the songs, along with some songs from other cultures, from other traditions, all together. And she included some of the songs from the Caney Circle. And then finally, later, now in 2020, we took these songs that we've been singing for 30 years, and we put them into this album, this CD called Songs from the Stone Hoop. And the name Stone Hoop, I don't know how many of you are acquainted with these stone, what they call stone collars or stone ovals, that the ancient Tainos used to create. These are what they call lithic collars, arolítico. And we believe that because they have this egg shape, almost like a pear shape, we believe that they represent the silhouette of a uterus, of a womb, the womb of Atabey. So when something comes through that hoop, it's being born, that's symbolically. So we perceived our songs coming through that hoop, and we actually have a copy, an image of that hoop on the cover of the CD. That's why it's called Songs from the Stone Hoop. La trayectoria de estas canciones es que en la década del 70 y 80 fueron inspiradas. Eran las canciones tradicionales, las canciones ceremoniales del círculo espiritual indígena Caney. Y nosotros empezábamos a cantar estas canciones durante nuestra ceremonia. La ceremonia de la luna llena, ceremonia del equinoccio, ceremonia del solsticio, etcétera, etcétera. Y entonces, ya después, ya cuando estábamos haciendo esta práctica por tanto tiempo, una de los miembros del círculo hizo la primera grabación en el 1990 y en un tape, un cassette. Y no eran solamente las canciones del círculo Caney, también ella añadió canciones de otras tradiciones, etc. E incluyó algunas canciones del círculo Caney. Y esa fue la primera vez que se grabaron. Entonces, últimamente, ya en el 2020, es que grabamos las canciones del arolítico, canciones desde el arolítico, Songs on the Stone Hoop, que es la que tenemos en este momento.
Rico Mabu, muchas gracias for explaining all of that. I really wanted to. It's one of my favorite albums. I recommend anybody go check it out. It's available, as I said, on Spotify and also on YouTube. And our cover art is beautiful, and you'll see the stone hoop, and the songs are beautiful. And the composition of the songs has a really, you could just tell it's like work that, as Mexican Miguel said, is you could tell it's music that they had been playing for a long time and that they worked on really hard. So I recommend it. Okay, Tonakani, I'll let you take it.
Home for all the wisdom that you've shared. The final one comes from a very personal place because I'm relatively new in my journey and I've had to unlearn a lot of things. And I know there's other people that might need this question. So I want to ask, what basic steps can young people take to decolonize their worldview? Y para la gente que habla español, le pregunté, ¿cuáles son unos pasos básicos que los jóvenes pueden tomar para descolonizar cómo ven el mundo?
Yeah, so lo primero es empezar a ver el mundo de un punto de vista más indígena. Y eso es difícil de describir. ¿Qué es lo que es más indígena? Yo creo, sinceramente, que un buen lugar donde podemos empezar es tratar de separarnos de la mentalidad machista. I say, one of the first places that we should start is to begin to disassociate ourselves from the machismo mentality. And there's a good reason for that. I know that machismo and male, what is it called? The hyper maleness of our culture is not the only issue but it's a very important issue, unfortunately. And we men especially have to, because we take it for granted, and we think that that's the normal way of doing things. And the sooner that we begin to realize that there's nothing normal about this whole idea, we would begin to take some really important steps towards decolonizing. Colonization up to this point where we live now, a lot of it has a lot to do with that problem, with the problem of, and I'm trying to remember, there's a word, there's a term, and I can't remember the term right now. Something maleness. I can't remember the term.
Is it patriarchy?
The patriarchy, exactly. The patriarchy, yes.
The toxic masculinity.
Huh?
Oh yeah, Natalia said toxic masculinity. Is that where you
That's the word. That's the word I was
there you go,
looking for.
Natalia. Thank you.
That's the word I was looking for. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity as a man that has grown up. I'm 73. Oh, actually 74, sorry. As a man that has grown up in both the culture of Latin America and the culture of the United States, I have come to realize exactly how much that permeates into the mentality of our civilization, and how much it says, how much it directs the civilization. So and that doesn't just affect men's minds, it affects women's minds too. I've found a lot of men and women who they need to stop seeing this as normal, as okay, and begin to, I think as a spiritual person, the first place I realized that I needed to go was the identification of the Great Spirit. Bingo, first thing, this beautiful man, Sebastián Rubio March, in his book, Encuentro con la Mitología Taína, says it all. The Great Spirit, whom he calls Yaya, is by gender. In other words, there is a beautiful balance between the male and the female in this being that we recognize as the Great Spirit. If you start there, then you can begin to flesh out the rest of your reality. If you begin to understand from the very beginning that, stop saying the word God, okay? Because I see a lot of Tainos, a lot of indigenous people, that didn't exist in the ancient Taino reality. Our ancestors perceived a deity that was part male, part female, in balance. And the term creator, which usually is associated with a male divinity, where you say, oh, the creator told me that I needed to work on this, and the creator this, and the creator has a plan for me. And those are beautiful words, and people use it all the time. Lots of Tainos. You hear them say, oh, the creator has a plan for me, or the creator saved me today from making a big mistake. When they say that word, creator, they usually are thinking of some sort of male divinity. In Taino culture, go check it out. Go read Ramon Panay about our ancestors and their belief system, there is no place where it talks about a male creator spirit. Like Yokahu is our male creator, our male divinity. You know, he represents life and energy, but he is not a creator. Yokahu creates nothing. There is no male creation process. That's because the Tainos were hooked on to the idea that creation was birth. And men don't birth things, women do. So the creation process in Taino mentality was all about things coming out of the earth. You know, Ramon Pane only had so much paper, and he ran out of paper, and he actually complained. He used up some of the paper, complaining that he didn't have enough paper, this knucklehead, okay? So he didn't have enough paper to write everything, so he just got enough for us to get a taste of how the Tainos perceived creation. Human beings came out of a cave. That is a hole in the body of Mother Earth. The sun and the moon came out of a cave. That is a hole in the body of Mother Earth. That tells you something. The creation process is a uniquely female thing. When you begin to absorb and let that stuff melt in and get into you and really sink in, you will begin that journey of decolonizing your mind. When you begin to understand the value of duality, the value of this balance between male and female in the universe, in the creation stories, etc. That's my best shot at helping you with your question of how do we separate ourselves from the colonized mind. Start there.
Hahom.
Arikomavu, yes, hahom. And now, with the little bit of time we have left, I wanna ask the audience if to think, of any maybe question that you may have either for Katikuya or Tonakani or Behike Miguel. And while you're thinking of that, and you can put it in the chat, and I will look through it. Behike Miguel, do you have any questions for either Tonakani or Katikuya?
Yeah, I'm an old timer, and I make art, I produce art, because I believe that all human beings have within them essence of both the male and the female. It has the female element of a human being is the creative element. So whenever I start painting, I'm actually expressing my woman. Okay. Now, mind you, I am cis. Okay. There's no doubt about that. I'm a guy, and I don't consider myself by gender, but inside my soul is. My soul is by gender, because every human being is by gender, in my opinion. Okay, so even though I may not be a person that identifies as by gender, my belief system is that our souls, and every time we express certain aspect of our personality, we either express the male or the female. So as a creator, as a person that paints and makes music, I'm expressing the woman in me. Okay, so okay, I'm having an elder moment. Could you repeat your question?
The question was, well, actually, I was just giving you the time and the space in case you have any questions for them.
Oh, yes, that's thank you. That was where I was going. So my question is, I have this theory that in ancient times, in the beginning, when humans first began to invent art. And I believe that art is the basis of spirituality, that art and spirituality go together. And it's a form of communication that they had not had before. That they started communicating in a higher level. It wasn't just talk, it was like art. It wasn't just words, it was poetry. It wasn't just sounds coming out of your mouth, it was music. It wasn't just movement of the body, it was dance. It wasn't just, scratches randomly, it was painting, right? So I call that painting on the walls. But I believe that that was done taking the existing technology, which was a practical technology. They would take the body paint, the body covering that would protect them from fly bites, and they would start using that to paint on the walls. So it would take something practical and they would turn it into art, or a bow that would kill things like animals, and then they would twang it and they started making music like a harp. Okay, so they would take things that were already existing in their technology and turn it into this new form of communication, which was the art. I believe that's happening right now. I believe there's a new revolution like the one that happened 25,000 years ago, where human beings, especially young human beings, are taking the existing technology, which is originally created to run drones and shoot people and kill people, or the virtual AI technology that was originally created to do these other things, these so-called practical things, and they're turning it and they're doing creative things that enhance the soul, right? So I want to hear your opinions on this whole thing. What, I know that there are artists here. I know that there are creators here. All of you, many of you. And I want to see what your feelings are on the use of the current technology to turn it into something that, instead of enhancing people's pockets, enhances people's souls.
That's a great question. I'll let Katikuya or Tanakani answer.
Yeah, Tonakani, do you want to go first or do you want me to? Okay. Me personally, I have made the choice to not support AI art and AI platforms just because of the effects it has on the planet and on other artists and people who have already created things. But I do think AI is growing, and it is very interesting to see how fast it's growing. And I think a little part of it feels sometimes dangerous because of the misinformation it spreads. But in a art standpoint, I do think it is interesting how people are, finding different resources for inspiration and are taking it and making something of their own. I think technology is always expanding. So it is interesting to be in a place in my life where I can, I grew up without something, and now, just like how my parents grew up without internet and then they watched it expand. It's like my own AI is kind of my version of that. So I am learning a lot about it and about its effects, and, I'm very cautious about it. Yeah, but the reality is it will be a part of our future. So, that is always an interesting topic to me. Personally, I don't use it, but yeah, that's what I have to say about it. Tonakani, I'll pass it on to you.
Hahom Luna. My mind instantly went to this research paper that I wrote regarding Taino identity construction. That was kind of my foray into the beginning of my journey. And one of the people I interviewed really changed my perspective about technology. They told me it's not neo-colonialism, it's just plain old colonialism. It never stopped. And that's relevant to this talk because I see so many people creating videos, music, and under that lens, this is all in a sense colonial technology. It was technology used because somebody saw that it could print some money. Instead, we are taking the opportunity and we're taking advantage of what this technology can do. And instead of trying to make money out of it, we are trying to show the world that we are still here, and in it try to bring about a more indigenous world.
That's what I saw. That's what I've seen. And I've been seeing it for 20 years now. I've been seeing the evolution of this technology that was originally created for other reasons. And then young people have grabbed it, literally violently yanked it away from the hands of what we call the madmen. You know, there was a show back in the day, you know, a couple of decades ago called The Mad Men. And it was about people in Madison Avenue who used the arts, like, you know, not just visual arts, but also music to create commercials that would persuade people to buy things that would harm them, you know, like sugary cereal and things like that. And they were like in control of the arts to make money. And then, in my opinion, something has happened. People have come along that have yanked art out of the hands of the madmen and put it in the hands of true creators, new shamans, new spiritual creators, you know? And they are now like in the lead. The madmen are not in control anymore of the arts, you know? And that's what I call painting on the new cave walls. That's my name for it. Painting on the new cave walls, because there's a whole new cave wall out there, and all these young people are painting all over it. Every time I go on the internet, yes, I see a lot of crap, no doubt about it. But there are other things that I see that just take my breath away. Take my breath away. And there was a time when I wouldn't have been able to see it because the media was controlled by the madmen. And it's being taken away from them, and it's being put in the hands of incredibly talented young people that are doing things that just flip my wig. I mean, just, you know I couldn't have done stuff like that when I was that age. I know that. So they just amaze me. So anyway, that's my point.
Boo for that question, but he can be good. Yeah, I really like this topic. Actually, it was reminding me of a conversation that so I'm currently getting my master's from the University of Hawaii at Hilo in Indigenous Language Revitalization. And one of the conversations we were having, one of my classes was about the role of technology in Indigenous language revitalization and Indigenous cultural reclamation. And we were talking about how so many of us are using these tools like this, like Zoom and social media, like Instagram and Facebook and things like that, to for education, to bring our people together, to build community, to build bridges with one another. So it's all about how we're using these tools that I'm mentioning specifically, like social media and Zoom and YouTube and things like that. It's all about how we use them to put forth our culture and our people and our history and educate each other, right? And bring each other together. So it all depends on how people use it, right? So anyways, that was a great question. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? I'm gonna check in the chat to see if there are any questions from the audience for any of you. And if there isn't, then we will just wrap it up. So I'm just gonna take a quick look. I don't see any. Oh, Sophia. Sophia, go ahead. You can, I see Sophia's hand raised. Sophia, you go ahead.
Just going off of what you guys have been discussing, I know that, for example, with AI, a lot of the biases that are present in the current
internet landscape are going to be exacerbated by AI, because AI is only learning from the online world and what is present in the online world. And as we know, there are lots of stories and arts that come from indigenous communities that are not necessarily on the internet. And so one thing, even though I'm also in agreement, like I don't use AI, especially not for art, I am interested in this idea of do we in some sense put more of our digital footprint out there so that these biases can be stopped in some way or curbed? I don't know. I just find this really interesting, and it's not a fair responsibility to place on anybody, but like Luna was saying, it is the reality, and it is going to be a part of the future, unfortunately.
Look, in my opinion, AI is like all the other technology that has come out of the human mind over the centuries, including earlier computer technology like the internet and the World Wide Web, social networks. All of that stuff has continued progressing, and AI is just the newer. All of it has corrosive elements to it. I don't think that there's any kind of technology that does not have corrosive elements to it. Just like that bow and arrow I told you about that was originally created to kill things. Okay, my argument is that there has to be a way. There's always been a way that creative people have taken dangerous things and made them wholesome, made them work for them instead of the madman. And I'm sure that like what has happened, what we're doing right now, this Zoom video, this is technology. This is 21st century technology. And yet we're doing it to bring this ancient wisdom and this beautiful traditions of interaction and dialogue, that has always existed, more widely experienced by more people in different places. So all of this technology, I think, can be captured, can be taken away from the madmen and made to do your bidding. I really don't think that there's anything that's out of your reach. Even AI. I don't know that much about AI. I don't know how it works very much, but even that, you know more about it than I do. And I'm sure that you can take this and make it work for you. All of it. None of this stuff is inherently bad in and of itself. It's the way that it's being used. Okay? So take it, do what you will with it, change it, make it evolve, make it do your bidding instead of the bidding of the madman. And in my opinion, you can continue painting on the new cave walls.
Arikomavu, Tahom, and Arikomavu, Sophia, for that question. I want to end with this last question, just because I'm looking at time, that is in the chat by Michael. I believe that's Michael that I'm seeing. And actually, I want to, the question is specifically for Behike Miguel, but I actually want to pose this also to Tonakani and Katikuya. So just, from your own perspective. So the question originally is, could Miguel share a little bit about queer expression or identity from Taino perspective? But I also want to open that up for Tonakani and Katikuya.
So obviously, my contribution to that argument is very limited because I'm not queer. So as a non-gay person, I can give you my opinion from the perspective of a cis person. But a cis person that I already told you believes that there are elements of both genders in every human being. And once a person embraces that reality, that there is elements of both gender, there is a mother and a father, a brother and a sister in every human being, I think that we can become more liberated in the way that we perceive queerness and gayness in this century, in this era that we live in. And again, that is my opinion.
Arikomabu, Tonakani or Katikuya?
First of all, this is a fantastic question. I see queer expression and identity and Taino perspective, and to me, I don't want to say that they're one and the same, but they're very closely intertwined. At least that's how it's been in my journey. For those of you who don't know, I am Biawaisa, Two-Spirit. And it's a label that I've only recently embraced. But when I look back at my life, I've always exhibited behaviors that I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't surprising. I've always been non-binary. I've always questioned gender norms. And I think without realizing, I saw that they were these boxes. And these boxes are important because Western and colonial perspectives on life and the universe, they try to find these neat little boxes to fit everything in. And when you realize that life is a lot more complicated, a lot messier, and that you don't need to just adhere to these boxes, it's very liberating. And I relate that to queerness because queerness isn't just about sexuality, it's also about gender. And when you realize that you can be cis and still be somewhere on the spectrum, maybe closer to the end, but not this clean thing. Or when you're non-binary and you realize that this traditional way of looking at gender is very limiting, and it really liberates your mind in a way that I see relating to an indigenous perspective, because the way I started my indigenous connection is by realizing that I have been in this conceptual colonial box, and there was an indigenous and alternative perspective of seeing the world. I hope that made sense.
And yeah, I agree with both of you guys from a Taino perspective and also just from a spiritual perspective in general. I believe that feminine energy and masculine energy lives within all of us, you know, queer, straight, cis, whichever it is. Yeah, and I believe the same, like depending where you are on the spectrum, you're never boxed in. And that really is the colonization mindset and the colonialism talking, I feel like. And yeah, so I feel like to be spiritual and to be indigenous and to be connected to that side of you, there is always a balance of like both the feminine energy and both the masculine energy, no matter how you identify. Yeah.
Arikomabo, Tahong, gracias, thank you. I want to say Arikomabo to everyone in the audience for tuning in to this beautiful conversation. The recording of this will be on our YouTube. Actually, and the recording of last night's session, Taino Day of Resistance, that's already on our YouTube channel, as well as my personal YouTube channel. And the recording of last year's Taino Youth and Elders Day, which was a conversation with Elder Irka Mateo. That's on our YouTube. And so this one will be on our YouTube soon. I just have to download it and put it up there. So anyways, thank you, Arikumabu, to all of you who tuned in. And big thank you, Hahom, gracias, to Behike Miguel Sagues, to Tonakani Joshua, to Luna Katikuya for being part of this conversation and sharing what you did and all the amazing questions that you asked. We will be back again next year for Taino Language Day, Taino Day of Resistance, Taino Youth and Elders Day. This is, our Taino Huateca series. This is how we celebrate all these different aspects of our culture. And so I'm really happy to be able to end 2025 Huateca series like this with having perspectives from the youth and from an elder, because these are two different stages of life, but both are important. Both have powerful lessons to bring to the table. So I hope you all enjoyed it. And thank you, Ariko Mabu. Have a good evening, Usaka Sakuda. We'll see each other in other Uru Taino events. Okay, Butawa.
Thank you.